The guy who sold us the house, he had hidden cameras in most of the rooms in the house. But I'm pretty sure he was just creeping on all of us.
I wonder if the guy's in prison. I mean, geez, had cameras inside the house. That's disturbing. I don't know how. I would hope that this is like a one-off, not a very common story. So home sellers are honest, right? You want to buy their house. They've lived in it for years. They're going to tell you everything that you need to know, and they're going to fix everything, at least the things that are broken that they know about, so that you can have a enjoyable life ever after. Well, that's simply not the case. And if it were, we wouldn't have the need for good real estate agents or good home inspectors, or good lenders for that matter, that are picking apart, depending on what kind of loan that you're looking to get, FHA or VA, where they have to go through a higher standard of appraisal or inspection to make sure that house that you're buying is safe. The other thing is, never does the lender actually say, well, you're qualified to buy this house for this amount of money and this much money down, and these amount of repairs over the next several years. Nope, not the case. So after you buy it, you find out that you have tens of thousands of dollars in deferred maintenance and repairs necessary to keep this house safe to live in. This is where many home buyers fall into financial trouble.
Let me tell you a crazy and creepy real estate story. We bought our house a few years back during the small housing crisis. We bought it from a single guy in a similar age range as us. He just lost his well-paying job and needed to downsize his life to adjust to his now lower income. Maybe we should have asked why he lost his job, but honestly, we didn't care. We were just so excited to finally move into a home of our own, especially after living in apartments for so long. We were a small family. It was me, my husband, our 2 children, and a cat. I love cats, but maybe things would have been different if we had a dog. At first, things seemed pretty normal. There would be weird noises on occasion, unexpected occurrences. The energy bills were strangely high, and the water usage was more than we expected. We just chalked it up to it being a new house and our general unfamiliarity. For a few years, that was our new normal. Then one day we noticed the guy we had bought the house from hanging around in the neighborhood, which we thought was definitely weird, but what was super weird about that is that he fled when we tried to strike up a conversation. Things started feeling really weird again, and we started paying more attention to the strange noises, high water, and high energy usage. What we did is we asked the energy company to send out an inspector to find out where the power was going. And he was able to trace our wires and find a juncture leading off to who knows where on the property. After that, we had a survey done on our property to find out where exactly the wires were going, and we found a hidden underground bunker. The guy who sold us the house was still living on the property in this underground bunker, stealing our power, water.
Here we go. Oh,
He
wow.
had hidden cameras.
The guy had an underground bunker at the house. He was living there. That's funny.
Water. He had hidden cameras in most of the rooms in the house. And according to him, it was so he could time his arrivals and departures so that we wouldn't see him leaving the bunker. But I'm pretty sure he was just creeping on all of us. And thankfully, the judge agreed with us.
I wonder if the guy's in prison. I mean, geez, had cameras inside the house. That's disturbing. Oh, yeah, this is one of those situations that I don't really know that you could, I don't know how. I would hope that this is like a one-off, not a very common story, but it is interesting. I have known where property owners have tapped off of the main electric line before it gets to the meter and ran the power to somewhere else so that they could use the power and not pay for it. It's kind of dangerous. I don't know why someone would do that or risk their life doing something like that to save money on an electricity bill. But yeah, that's kind of weird.
It was so he could time his arrivals and departures so that we wouldn't see him leaving the bunker. But I'm pretty sure he was just creeping on all of us. And thankfully, the judge agreed with us. After all of that, he was arrested for this, but we also sold the house and moved the heck out of there. We were very careful while choosing the new owner, and we explained the bunker to the new owner. We explained how we changed the locks. We also made sure that the new owner knew the day the old owner was expected to be released from prison. Thankfully, the newest owner thought the bunker was pretty cool, and he told us he was going to turn it into his gamer bunker, which awesome. We wished him the best of luck on that. During the selling process, we refused to sell to families with children or to single women for fear of what the old owner might do when he got out of
Can't do that, guys. You can't listen to that advice. You cannot pick and choose. There are fair housing laws. You cannot pick and choose who can buy the house or move into the house. That is craziness to me. If you're an agent and you just heard that and your client says anything like that to you where you can't sell, I won't sell to this, that, or whatever, don't take that client. I'm telling you, that is big time trouble.
I just backed out of an offer I made on a house, and I got to tell you, it was a f***ing roller coaster. I recently made a video where I got an offer accepted on a house that used to be a rental. Well, the house was currently occupied by the tenant, and the sellers let us know that there was a clause in the lease that said the tenant had to move out 30 days after an offer was accepted on the house. Great, fine, I can handle that. I didn't think much of it because I own rental properties and the tenant just must have been on a month-to-month lease, at least I thought. I just wouldn't close until I had confirmation that the tenant was moved out. I got to protect myself. And so after a few days of trying to schedule a home inspection, I get a call and it turns out that the tenant is super PO'd. He's like, I don't like this. I need more time to look for a place to live based on my history, based on my background. I need more time. And I'm like, what is this all about? So I'm doing my due diligence and I ask for a copy of the lease agreement just so that I understand everything that's going on. And it turns out that the conditions of the lease were misrepresented to me. Incredible. There was a termination clause, meaning that when a property sells, the tenant has to move out. But it wasn't 30 days after an offer was accepted. It was 30 days after the property sold. The plot thickens.
There's a lot of problems that I could see with this. I mean, if you're looking at a house that is tenant occupied, how do you know what that condition of the property will be when they move out? So you look at the house, there's all kinds of issues. So I've had this happen many times where even taking photos, you have to get, the best practice is to get the tenant to sign some type of addendum that says the house is going to be offered for sale. In a lot of states, Maryland being one of those, you have to give the tenant a first right of refusal, and there's a certain amount of days. You have to tell them how much you're planning on selling the house for, give them an opportunity to buy it, or tell you whether they're interested in buying it. But what happens, you're going to put their stuff, all the tenants, all their belongings on the internet when you take pictures. So I make all of my agents get something in writing from the tenant in that situation when I know about it, to say, hey, look, you can't just go in and take pictures of somebody else's property. It's not the homeowner. But the tenant always possessions 9/10 of the law, right? Maybe even 10/10, maybe all of the law. You can't just kick out a tenant. I've gone through this over and over and over again. You have to go through the court process. It can take 6 or 7 months to get them out. So the tenant can refuse to leave. A seller has motivation at the settlement table. They're going to get a check. The motivation of the tenant is they're getting kicked out and need to find a place to live. So you have to be really careful when you're looking at a house that's tenant occupied.
Forward with the purchase, it would be my responsibility to make sure that the tenant moved out on day 30, which it sounded like he didn't want to do because he was PO'd that he was being made to move. And he wasn't in a month-to-month lease. He was actually in the middle of a multi-year lease, which, given a legal perspective, means that I would have a really hard time evicting him.
Okay, you can evict him, all right? Here's the thing. Lease survives death, period. They have ownership rights within. The tenant has ownership rights during the term of their lease. You cannot terminate it based on a sale. If you're buying a house, and a tenant is occupying the property, if you're looking at that, you should absolutely require the seller to give you a copy of that lease to review. Your agent should know that. You know it now if you're listening to this video, because you need to know, what is the termination clause in that lease? Can they terminate it early for whatever reason? A lot of times the early termination is because of default for something like not paying the rent, which isn't guaranteed that they're going to get out by the time that the court, you're going to go through the court system, and that they're going to be thrown out if they don't leave voluntarily by the time that you close. So this is a problem. I don't like it. I would say if you're buying a house that is currently under a tenant lease, I would say, show me a copy of the lease. I want to see the active lease. And I would probably even want to have a conversation with the tenant, just saying, hey, I know you're leasing the place, and where are you going? What are you doing? Whatever. I would ask some questions about that, because I want to get a good feel myself, a good confidence level myself as a buyer, as to whether that's something I'm willing to get into for this reason.
But wait, there's more. So you remember the tenant talking about his history, talking about why it was hard for him to find something? It turns out he is a disbarred lawyer, and he was disbarred because he was stealing his client's settlement money in the excess of around $200,000, from what I understand. Oh, and also his wife just left him. He's got no job, no wife, trying to be evicted, and he's angry. Do you think I want to try to evict that tenant, especially when I don't have the good legal precedents? No. So I backed out, collected my EMD, and I'm back on the market looking for a house.
Yeah, so EMD, earnest money deposit, or depending on what state you're in, it could be also called your escrow. That's the deposit money that you're putting up. I usually recommend 1% deposit if you're buying a $500,000 house, $5,000 deposit. That's typically acceptable when you're buying a house. The situation here, though, is not a very good one, because he walked away. He probably spent some money on inspections, and this guy knows what he's doing. I mean, he said it. He's a landlord, and he understands how difficult it can be to evict tenants. So beware if you're buying a house that has a tenant in it. At least know what to ask. Also, on a side note to that, I've had a situation. He had mentioned that he was going through a divorce, that the seller was going through a divorce. As a listing agent, I've had to deal with this, where the court has said to a divorcing couple that you must sell the house. Well, a lot of times one of the spouses is permitted to stay in the house. Maybe it's the wife, the husband's not living there, and the wife is told to cooperate with the listing agent that was appointed by the court. Both sides agreed to use this non-biased party, this listing broker or agent. And what happens is the one living in the house doesn't want to leave. So they make it very hard to see the house. They don't leave the house in good shape or good order, because they would have to get out of the house or get displaced from the house should the house sell. I can't tell you how many times this has happened. If you're looking at a house where this could be the case, understand that that could play into your offer being accepted. All right. So that when there's a domestic dispute like a divorce, that's something else you should be very wary about.
This is everything that went wrong since we bought our first house. When we got here and saw the house empty for the first time, there was rat poop on the floor. But we thought we just had to do some deep cleaning because we had it tented for termites, which would unalive anything inside. But then there was a horrible smell, so we lifted the laminate floors and found piso hardwood with missing chunks. We then opened kitchen cabinets and found piles of rat poop and dead roaches. We were scared and lost, so we just started removing all the damage we could, which led to us not having a place to live for months. We quickly found out our plumbing was completely clogged and needed to be replaced. Our AC didn't didn't actually work, and the ducts were chewed up by rats that had been living in the vents. Also, the windows could be easily opened and had a bunch of gaps so anything could get in. After losing our savings on repairing our systems, we then had to gut the house down to the studs. But the more we tore down, the more we found rat poop, mold in the walls, on the ceiling, trash hidden underneath our porch, in the backyard. It was everywhere. With our full-time jobs and limited funds, it was just the two of us working, so our family would travel across the country to help as much as they could. So after months, we got rid of all the damage and were finally able to start rebuilding. We thought we did everything right. We got a regular and a pest inspection, and we're told the house was in good condition, that all our systems were working. I still can't believe everything we went through, and it's crazy to look back on our entire journey. But now that we finished our kitchen and one of our bathrooms, I'm so excited to continue rebuilding and hopefully have a finished home we love soon.
So these people had to rehab a house after they bought it. Again, a lot of this would be handled in an inspection. If you're buying a house or going to look at a house, you should really make sure that your eyes are wide open. You should be looking for evidence of problems, and you should be really focused on the way a place smells. So a lot of this, it's not uncommon to have pests in a house. I mean, mice get in houses, insects get in houses. I say all the time, there's three types of houses. There's a house with termites, a house that had termites, or a house that will have termites. It's going to happen, right? So the idea is not whether it's happened in the past or whether it will happen in the future. It's knowing what to look for when you're walking through a house and having a home inspected. And really, when they said it was the first time that they saw the house empty or vacant, this is why I always say when you get a home inspection, anything that is hidden from behind furniture, like outlets or where you could see maybe mouse droppings or whatever, it is a good idea to look behind the furniture and see what you can see. Good inspectors still will not move furniture, so that if there is something that you are suspect of, make sure that you let the listing agent know prior to your home inspection to make sure things are moved away from the walls so the inspector can have a good look all the way around.
I am in big trouble and the seller is going to sue me. Oh yeah, today was a fun one. Austin and I were at an inspection today. Old house, like an 1870, 1860 house. Recently renovated, so we know what that means. That means the seller actually did all the work himself. And let's just say it wasn't going real well, but we were doing a septic dye test and we were testing the faucets. And the way that that works is you have to run water for an extended period of time, but all we do is turn on a faucet. Austin was doing the septic dye test today. You run the water, you make sure it doesn't leak, you stand there for a few minutes, and then you periodically check it. And right about the 40-minute mark, water started coming out into the kitchen. As we walked in and we noticed the water coming out, we shut off the faucets and the water just kept coming. It wasn't going to stop. Like, it just started flooding the kitchen floor. I looked under the sink in the kitchen and I noticed water was actually spraying up through the drain pipe. And I went in the bathroom and water was also spraying up through the drain pipe.
So they had a sewer backup of some sort, which I'm sure we're going to hear more about. But he made a statement about the seller had renovated the house or flipped the house, and that means that he did all the work himself. That's not always the case. Just because a house flipper bought the house, renovated it, and sold it doesn't mean that he did the work himself. He could have used licensed contractors. You can have people that are working and renovating a house that know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that the seller was a complete DIY.
So, number one, none of the drains were properly plumbed. That water should have come up into the sink, not all over the floor. But on top of it, the fact that it was spraying out of the bottom after we turned off the water tells me that there was a backup in the drain pipe somewhere, downstream. So now that the kitchen floor is fully wet, we're grabbing towels, we're, cleaning everything up, which we don't have to do. This is something called failing under normal use. I'm legally required to run faucets and to test drains and all that stuff, and sometimes they fail.
So he made a statement about the water not being plumbed right, or the plumbing not being plumbed right, because water was coming out of the vent versus the sink itself. There are things called Studer vents, and a lot of times they're under sinks, and they are used in lieu of a vent pipe that goes all the way out through the roof. There are even situations where this is acceptable based on the permitting process, where the plumbing inspector will permit or approve the use of a Studer vent in lieu of that other vent pipe. So I home inspectors, a lot of them take courses and think they know everything there is about home construction. Nevertheless, there's a problem.
Everything cleaned up and dried out. Took us about a half an hour. We're down in the basement, and what I offered to do for free today was to do a sewer scope and basically run the camera down and see if we could find what the problem was. Sometimes you can kind of knock the clog loose with the camera, and that wasn't the case today. We got out about 5 feet, and it was completely clogged. Just about then, Austin and I are standing down in the basement. We hear the seller come in, and he's cussing. He's just F this and F that, and you guys clogged my drain. And he comes down, he's like yelling, right? The listing agent, really good guy. I could just see the look on his face. And I'm trying to tell the seller, I said, sir, it failed under normal use. So we didn't create a problem. We didn't cause a problem. We discovered a problem.
Right. So a lot of times when there are houses that were recently renovated and you're not really using a lot of water, or maybe they did turn on the water, but it wasn't enough at that point to create this massive backup. I'm not making excuses. I'm just stating facts. When you're renovating a house, you're pulling out the toilets. And when you do that, the house will stink like poop, because that's the sewer line, right? That's coming up. So the odor, the gases from the sewer pipe are coming into the house. So a lot of times the contractor will take a rag, and it happens all the time, and shove that rag just in the opening of the sewer pipe that's underneath of where the toilet was taken out. And then what happens is, working in the house, it gets lodged down in that pipe, which would explain 5 feet or so into the sewer line, and create a problem. And once somebody buys it and moves in and starts using the house under normal use, and a lot of times it doesn't happen right away. So the rag may be in a way where it lets some water go, but when you're turning on multiple things at a time, and you're filling up a sink like inspectors do, full of water, and then pulling the plunger and forcing literally 5 gallons of water down the pipe, that lodges the rag in a lot of cases and prevents any water from going through, creating the problem. It's a problem waiting to happen either way. But another thing that happens is, if they don't cover those up or plug up those kind of holes, and by the way, they sell covers. I mean, you could easily put a cover over top of that pipe instead of a rag. But a lot of times when they're doing drywall and things like that, the debris gets down in there as well, so it becomes a bigger issue.
That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Oh no, he was screaming at me. He says, you clogged my drain. I use that kitchen sink every day, and it's never backed up.
Which he may be right. It may be true.
You living here by yourself using the kitchen sink occasionally is different than running 3 faucets and maybe a family of 3 living here. So it's supposed to have proper drainage, and it doesn't. I'm doing my very best to stay professional through this whole thing. I said, sir, do you think I brought something with me to intentionally clog up your drains? He goes, well, I don't know what you did, but you definitely did something. And I said, look, I'm down here as a courtesy right now, trying to see if I can clear the clog or to see if I can at least find the problem. And I go, I didn't even have to clean up the water in the kitchen. I did that as a courtesy as well. He goes, oh yeah, real courteous. You clogged up my system. And I said, well, sir, I'm just trying to do the best I can here, but it broke under normal use. At that point is when he kind of like reasserted that somehow I caused the clog. He goes, well, you were the one running the faucets. And I said, when something breaks under normal use, it's no different than like opening a door and it falling off the hinges. And I go, faucets are meant to be run, and it failed under normal use. So at that point, he started threatening to sue me. He's like, well, I'm going to sue you. And I'm just,
Well, let's just be grateful for the buyers in this case that this home inspector did uncover that. But again, it could have been benign. It could have been an honest thing that, mistake that happened during the renovation process. Doesn't mean that the seller was trying to be misinforming or the buyer, or that it was trying to harm the buyer in any way or pull the wool over the buyer's eyes. I don't think that was the case in this, since it was a renovation. But this gets to an important point that if you're buying a house, it's not a bad idea to get a sewer scope, especially if it's a newly renovated house or if it was a house that was built in the mid 80s or older. And the reason is because of the kind of pipe that they used. A lot of it was galvanized pipe or terracotta pipe, and tree roots get inside of those pipes. The tree could even have been removed, and there's no evidence of a tree, but maybe it was at one point, and the tree roots got inside and they're continually growing. And having a sewer scope would tell you that. It's a very expensive thing. A lot of times your sewer lines could be 10 or 12 feet deep and cost tens of thousands of dollars to replace. And along with that, I'll give you also, whether you're a homeowner or a buyer, it's not a bad idea to make sure that you have sewer backup on your insurance policy. In most cases, you don't have it. It's a rider. It's something that you have to add, and it's very inexpensive. But by having a sewer backup in the event that you do have a problem with your sewer pipe, that expensive tens of thousands of dollars it costs you to install a new pipe would be covered under your policy, should you request that. But there are times when sellers can be devious. I remember in multiple occasions where a seller was asking me certain questions of things that I had to disclose and didn't want me to disclose those items. And I had knowledge of it. So if you're a seller and you tell your agent something that you want them to lie about or hide from a buyer, if you're an agent that would actually do that, if it was something that should be disclosed, for instance, every time, I have a party and people come over the house, we have a sewer backup because we use the water a lot. Well, that's a material fact, but it doesn't happen most of the time. Well, that's something, Mr. Seller, that I have to disclose to buyers. And they say, well, I don't want to disclose that because that's ridiculous. It doesn't happen that often, but it happens. And you told me. So now I have to let the buyer's agent or the buyer, if they're unrepresented, even though I don't represent them and I represent you, I have to tell them that. And actually, it's good for you as a seller because you could get sued by not disclosing this type of information. And then people will say, well, how will anybody know? I'm like, how do they know? Well, I have one for you. When they get in the house, they move in and they discover the clog and the poop goes all over the floor, and they call the local plumber and they come out and say, yeah, this guy, I've been here multiple times. He has this problem. And I told him that the sewer line needs to be repaired or replaced. But I've been out here 3 times in the last 5 years. That is one way that the buyer can find out about your misbehavior and not disclosing that issue. But let's check out what this Reddit thread says. Just bought a house and I feel lied to. New homeowner here. And I feel kind of dumb, as I'm sure the answer is, it's your house now, your problem. But I'm currently crying my eyes out. I just bought a house 3 days ago. It was inspected, appraised, and I asked the questions. I got a warranty, and there, of course, was disclosures, and was told that the finished basement didn't leak, and was told at length about how bone dry it had been all summer. But I just came home from my 12-hour shift at the hospital, and half of my carpet in my room, which is in the basement, is soaking wet. outlet and a wall is damaged from the leak. It rained hard for about an hour, maybe 2 in the morning. It's 2:30 a.m. There's obviously nothing I can do at this hour. I can't sleep, and I have 3 more 12-hour days in a row. Then I have a U-Haul scheduled to move the rest of my things, followed by another 12-hour day at the hospital, and we have more rain coming in a couple of days. This goes back to my point of the seller that could not disclose when they have a big party that their sewer backs up. Same kind of thing. Does your basement leak? Now, as a listing agent, you should be able to look at a house for the most part and see a couple red flags. Maybe the grade is coming towards the foundation, the backyard's elevated, it's higher than the foundation of the house, or maybe windows, basement windows. You can see evidence of where rainwater has collected. Maybe it's washed dirt up on the foundation. Maybe when you go down in the basement, you could see a water line even on the drywall, or some water damage at the baseboard molding, and things that would be obvious to ask the question, does your basement, or has it ever leaked? And of which then the seller may say, well, in heavy rains, we have had problems. That is a disclosure item. You should disclose that. You should say, hey, we have a sump pump. As long as the electric stays on, you know what? We don't have a problem. The water collects in the basement, and in the drain, the perimeter drain goes into the sump pit. The pump comes on, kicks it out. But when those long periods of time where we have no electricity, we have to manually bail out the sump pit, or the basement would leak. These are things that may seem obvious, but if you're a seller and you have had problems, it's okay. It should be disclosed. And guess what? If they don't deal with it and they don't care, well, then you're covered as a seller. The buyers I'm talking about. But as an agent, if you have that knowledge, you need to disclose that to any potential buyers. But it gets back to the point of the issue. If a seller knows of something, if a buyer gets the right home inspections, they should be disclosed and discovered. Again, if a seller has something that's broken and they fix it, you don't have to disclose that I had a problem and it was fixed. Getting back to the drain, you say, okay, if you have a big party and that's when my sewer backs up, if you got that sewer scoped and unclogged, there's no need to tell a buyer, oh, by the way, prior to us unclogging the drain, we had problems where the sewer backed up in the house. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about having knowledge, it not being fixed or repaired, and then it happening to a buyer. That's when the sellers can have potential lawsuits in their hands. So all this comes down to buyer beware. We call it caveat emptor. It is it's widely said in the real estate industry, if you're a buyer, if you're buying a house with problems, they become your problems. So all of the due diligence that needs to be done ahead of time when you're spending more money in one single purchase than most will ever make in their entire lifetime, and you're paying for it for 30 years, like a 30-year mortgage. And by the way, when we're talking about mortgaging something for 30 years, if you buy a $500,000 house, you end up spending like $1.5 million on it with interest that is front-loaded in your mortgage payment. So whatever you do, I cannot tell you enough as a home buyer, it's important to be educated. That's exactly why I wrote my Todd Simple Home Buying course. That's the best thing I can do to help you, right? I can't help everybody. I can't represent. I'm only licensed in Maryland, and I can't even help all of the Maryland home buyers. It's crazy. But what I can do is write a course, which I did, based on my 35 years experience as a contractor, as a builder, as a real estate agent, a team leader, and now a broker, a real estate broker that manages agents. I can help you with my course. It just requires you to spend $300, which is not a lot of money when you're buying a house, to get educated. I haven't had one person tell me that it wasn't worth it. And I'm getting a lot of positive feedback where people are saying things like, this was really helpful, and it really opened my eyes to things that I wouldn't have known otherwise. So that's what I'm trying to do, guys. Educate you, help you. And a lot of people say, well, Todd, where's the home seller course? I'm working on that now. I hope to have it out in the next several months where I can help sellers to properly go about preparing their house for the market and selecting a listing agent or deciding whether they're going to list it for sale by owner, and give them a lot of resources to help them do that as well. So, we know that in any market, it doesn't matter what the interest rate is. It doesn't matter how many houses are on the market, whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. We know that in any market, there are people who want to buy houses and who want to sell houses. And I believe the best thing that I can do is to better educate you. So if you like the video and you got some good points out of it, some helpful tips, you can let me know by hitting that thumbs up. A lot of times, if you're not commenting, that's the only way I know that you're getting value from my videos. Share it with your family and friends that you think could benefit and from this video and our channel in general, so that we can continue to build this education platform for buyers and sellers. And if you haven't subscribed, do that as well, and see you next time. Hey guys, I have just released my new Todd Simple home buying course. This course is designed for anyone wanting to know how to buy a home. It's designed to take you through the entire home buying process from start to finish. You'll learn how to represent yourself should you want to avoid paying real estate commissions, the best ways to shop for a home, how to avoid costly mistakes, what to look for when touring a home, negotiation tactics, and so much more. In this home buying course, I hold nothing back. In fact, I would go to say that no one has uncovered the home buying process like I have. I've even made a way for you to gift this course to your family and friends. Visit sacsrealty.education. The link is also pinned in the comments below. Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.